Most people have heard the word cryptocurrency, but if you asked them to actually explain how it works, most couldn't get past it's digital money. And honestly, that's not their fault. The way this stuff gets explained is usually either way too technical or way too hyped. So today, we're stripping it back. No noise, just the actual mechanics of how cryptocurrency works, why it was built, and what it really means for your money. Let's get into it. Here's the thing most people don't realize. The word cryptocurrency is two words combined. Crypto, which comes from cryptography, the science of hiding and securing information, and currency, which just means money. So at its core, cryptocurrency is digital money secured by code. That's it. Now you might be thinking, wait, I already have digital money. My bank balance is digital. So what makes this different? The difference is control. When you hold dollars in a bank account, a central institution controls that money. They can freeze it, they can limit transfers, they can set rules on how you use it. With cryptocurrency, no central authority exists. There's no bank, no government, no institution in the middle. That idea didn't just appear out of nowhere. It has a specific origin story. Back in 2009, a person or group using the name Satoshi Nakamoto released Bitcoin into the world. Nobody knows who Satoshi actually is. The name sounds Japanese, and there's a face some people associate with it. But the real identity has never been confirmed. What we do know is the intention behind Bitcoin. It was built as a direct response to centralized financial systems. Some people believed governments and banks had too much power over money. Bitcoin was their answer, a way to move value between people without needing anyone's permission. So yes, cryptocurrency was originally designed to function as money, not as a speculative asset, as actual currency for buying and selling things. But something shifted over time. Most people today don't use crypto to buy coffee. They hold it, they trade it, they treat it like a stock, and there's a real reason for that. Crypto prices move too fast for everyday spending to make sense. Imagine paying a fraction of a Bitcoin for lunch today, and that same fraction being worth double tomorrow. That kind of volatility makes it a terrible everyday currency, even if it's a fascinating financial instrument. So the world landed in a middle ground. Traditional currency for spending, cryptocurrency for investing, speculating, and in some cases, transferring value across borders. Now let's talk about the system underneath all of this, because this is where it gets interesting. Here's the real code behind this system. Cryptocurrency runs on something called a blockchain, and the easiest way to understand it is with a simple image. Imagine a notebook that records every single transaction. Every time money moves, it gets written down. Now imagine that notebook isn't owned by one person. Thousands of people around the world all hold an identical copy of that same notebook. If someone tries to go back and change an entry in their copy, every other copy immediately flags it as wrong. The altered version becomes invalid. The network rejects it. That's the blockchain. Each page in the notebook is a block. When a page fills up, a new one gets added, and they're all linked together in a chain, which is exactly why it's called a blockchain. When you send cryptocurrency to someone, that transaction gets broadcast to a global network of computers. Those computers don't just accept it automatically, they verify it. They check that you actually have what you're claiming to send and that the transaction follows the rules of the network. But here's the part most people don't know. Those computers verifying transactions aren't doing it out of generosity. They're doing it because they get paid. This is called mining. To confirm a transaction, computers have to solve an extremely complex mathematical puzzle. It's not a puzzle a human could sit down and work through. It requires serious computing power. The first computer to solve it gets to confirm the transaction and add it to the blockchain. As a reward, the network generates new coins and gives them to that computer's owner. That's why you've heard about Bitcoin miners running warehouses full of powerful machines. They're essentially competing to solve puzzles faster than anyone else. The faster you solve, the more you earn. This system is called proof of work. Not every cryptocurrency uses it. Some, like Ethereum after its major update, switched to a different model called proof of stake. That's a separate conversation. But proof of work is the original mechanism, and it's still how Bitcoin operates today. If you're enjoying this breakdown, hit subscribe so we can stay connected. Now let's talk about cryptocurrency as an investment, because this is where most people's interest starts. The return potential is real. Someone who bought Bitcoin around $500 a coin back in 2016 and held through its peak near $60,000 or higher saw returns that most traditional investments can't come close to matching over the same period. That's not hype, that's math, but the risk is just as real. Cryptocurrency is one of the most volatile asset classes that exists. In a matter of months, Bitcoin dropped from around $45,000 to roughly $16,000. That's a loss of more than 60%. Then it recovered, then it ran higher. The swings are dramatic, and they happen fast. Why does crypto move this way? A few forces drive it. Supply and demand, obviously. But the bigger drivers are speculation and media cycles. A lot of people buying cryptocurrency aren't doing deep analysis. They're chasing momentum. When excitement builds, prices surge. When doubt creeps in, people panic sell and prices collapse. A single announcement, whether it's a government ban, a major institutional buy, or a media story, can shift the entire market in hours. That's the environment you're working with. High ceiling, high floor risk, fast moving in both directions. Now let's decode some of the terms you'll keep running into if you spend any time in this space. Bitcoin is the original, the first cryptocurrency ever created. Because its supply is permanently capped, many people compare it to gold. It can't be printed infinitely. That scarcity is part of what drives its value perception. Altcoin is a broad term for any cryptocurrency that isn't Bitcoin. Ethereum, Solana, and thousands of others fall into this category. Within altcoins, there's a subcategory called meme coins, like Dogecoin and Shiba Inu. These often move based on social media trends rather than any underlying utility. A wallet is how you interact with your cryptocurrency. And here's where most people get confused. Your wallet doesn't actually hold your crypto. The crypto always lives on the blockchain. What your wallet holds are your keys. There are two kinds of keys. The public key is your address. You can share it freely. It's how people send you crypto. The private key is your access code. Whoever holds the private key controls the funds. Lose it, and the crypto is gone. There's no customer support line to call, no password reset. It's simply gone. Wallets come in two forms. Hot wallets are connected to the internet, easy to use, but more exposed to hacking. Cold wallets store keys offline, on a physical device, which makes them more secure, but also means if that device disappears, so does your access. There's a well-known story of someone who accidentally discarded a hard drive containing the private key to thousands of Bitcoin. That person has spent years trying to locate it in a landfill. The Bitcoin is still sitting there, completely inaccessible. Then there's the concept of a fork. When a cryptocurrency community can't agree on how the network should evolve, it can split. Each side continues on its own path with its own version of the coin. Bitcoin Cash came from exactly this kind of disagreement. One group wanted faster transactions and larger block sizes. The other preferred to keep the original structure. They split. Two separate coins emerged. Now let's look at the full picture. Because cryptocurrency comes with real advantages and real drawbacks that are worth understanding clearly. On the advantage side, the biggest one is decentralization. No central bank controls it, no government can print more of it on a whim. For people living in countries with unstable currencies or restrictive financial systems, that matters enormously. Accessibility is another real advantage. All you need is an internet connection, no bank account application, no credit check, no waiting in line. That opens financial participation to people who've historically been locked out of traditional systems. The flexibility is genuine too. Crypto moves around the clock. You can transfer value across the world on a Sunday night at 2 in the morning with no delays and relatively low fees compared to wire transfers. There's also a privacy dimension. Transactions are encrypted and harder to trace than traditional banking. But it's worth being clear here. The blockchain is public. Every transaction is recorded. It takes more effort to trace, but it's not invisible. Governments and regulatory agencies have developed increasingly sophisticated tools to follow the money when they need to. Now the other side. Volatility is the biggest challenge. Crypto can deliver extraordinary gains and devastating losses in the same calendar year. That's not an exaggeration. It's happened repeatedly across multiple assets. The privacy that protects legitimate users also protects bad actors. Cryptocurrency has been used to facilitate illegal transactions because it's harder to trace. That reality shapes how governments think about regulating it. Speaking of regulation, that uncertainty is its own risk. Governments around the world are still working out how to treat cryptocurrency. Regulatory decisions can move markets dramatically and instantly. The rules aren't settled, and they won't be for some time. Scams are also a persistent issue in this space. Fake platforms, fraudulent projects, and classic confidence schemes all exist in crypto. The irreversibility of transactions makes this especially dangerous. If you send cryptocurrency to a scammer, there is no reversal, no dispute process, no institution to call. The transaction is done the moment it clears. That lack of consumer protection runs through everything. The same feature that makes crypto free from institutional control also means there's no safety net. When something goes wrong, there's no one to make you whole. At the end of the day, cryptocurrency is one of the most structurally interesting financial systems ever built. It's a technology experiment and an economic experiment running simultaneously at global scale. Whether it becomes the future of money, a permanent investment asset class, or something in between, the underlying mechanics are worth understanding regardless of whether you ever own a single coin. Because the systems being built on top of blockchain technology are starting to touch everything from banking to contracts to ownership of digital assets. Understanding how it works is no longer optional knowledge for people who care about where money is heading. So the real question isn't whether cryptocurrency is good or bad. It's this. In a world where financial systems are being rebuilt from the ground up, what role do you want to understand well enough to make your own decisions? See you in the next case.